Now that we're going to have 20-man raids confirmed, let's look at a 20-man group comp really fast. Are we thinking 2 or 3 healers? I mean, 2 or 3 tanks? No raid-wide buffs is a problem. You're going to need a shaman in every group, just like Classic. Okay, let's very quickly make a quick 20-man, guys. 2 melee groups or 2 range groups is the question. 1 tank group. Let's do 1 tank group, 1 melee group, 1 caster group, 5 healers. Yeah? You need a shaman for casters. Okay, for my tanks, guys, for my tanks, I'm probably taking... Are we ever taking a rogue tank? Like, ever? I mean, I imagine that 1 warlock tank would be kind of good, but enhancement shaman and paladin both do magic damage, so it's not like needed, right? I think feral off tank is always bis. Rogue tank is okay. Okay, the 3 tanks, let's be honest, the 3 tanks don't really matter. It just doesn't matter. The tanks just don't really matter. Am I capping? I feel like they just don't matter. They're all good. They all work. It just doesn't matter. Feral is like a min-max. If you want the 3% melee crit buff, but it doesn't like really matter. You always put a hunter, you always put a marksman hunter and 2 marksman hunters in the melee group for the true shot aura. Now, I'm going to probably make this comp based on what the classes offer to the group to give the group-wide buffs primarily. So it would be an enhancement shaman, and then it would be warrior. Would do like a rogue, and then warrior DPS probably. You could do like an arms and a fury warrior or something like that. And then in this group, you bring like another off tank or another main tank, which you could probably do another warrior here. Put the feral as an off combat. And then... in the tank group, you could do... what could you do in the tank group? Some 40-man raid, you'll need another tank. This is for Horde, guys. This is for Horde. And we'll obviously just swap the shamans out for paladins, more than likely, in most groups. Let's just do a warlock. Yeah, you do a warlock for the HP. A warlock tank is fire, actually. I think warlock tanks kind of go Destro and Affliction. No lie, but this would be a warlock tank. It would be nice if there was a tank spec. But warlocks do give a... this is for phase 3, 20-man. Now that 20-mans are announced, we're doing a group spec. At level 50, Fury takes over, right, guys? Level 50, Fury comes online. Warlocks are probably going Demo forever now. If Demo is damage reduction, I think it's Fury Warriors 100% in phase 2. At level 50, it's Fury Warrior. 50 and up is Fury. That combat spot is for Smug? Yeah, probably. One rogue spot. Maybe if you're a tank, you could have 2 rogues, I think. I'm just trying to put the group buffs in here, you know what I mean? Like, rogues right now, they need to give rogues something to give people a reason to put them in the raid. Because even at 20-man, I'm trying to show, like, how down bad the rogue spot really is. It's still down bad. You're going to need a Disc Priest. Matter of fact, I do like Shadow Priest as well. In the healing group, you're going to need a Resto Sham. You're going to need a Shaman in every group, by the way. What other healer do we need? Does it even matter? Do you run double Disc Priest, 1 for Homunculi, or do you put a Shadow Priest? Double Disc Priest is probably good. Right now, we'll do a 5 healer comp. There has to be a Resto. Maybe you do a Resto Druid. I wouldn't mind just putting one of each of the healers, to be honest. Maybe a Mage Healer, right? Maybe something like that for the healer group. And then the DPS group is pretty easy, right? There's obviously, you got to go Destro Fire, Boomkin. Destro Fire, Boomkin is a no-brainer. You need one Shaman in every group. So you bring an Elemental Shaman for Mana Tide. Totems are just amazing. There's your caster group and maybe a Shadow Priest. If you really wanted one. Vamp Embrace is pretty good. I don't think you need the Shadow Priest, but you can obviously stack Destruction or Fire Mages, guys. You can obviously stack that, but I'm trying to like put one of every comp and spec into the raid and see which one kind of gets left out. Two Disc Priest is a throw. One can run Homunculi, but the Shadow Priest can do this. 100% have a S Shadow Priest with the tank. Well, these are all tanks. These are all tanks. I put a Marksman Hunter in here, but it could be a Shadow Priest. I mean, do you think it's better? What would you guys change on this comp? Shadow Priest doesn't need to be in the same group, then it's fine where it is. You give the Shadow Priest 3% crit and mana back totem. An Arcane Mage can do damage while healing. Disc Priests are the best throughput healers right now. You want to just run one Holy Priest instead? We'll do an alliance comp underneath this. But alliance comp is not going to be much different. It's just going to we'll just replace these with paladins. Or this will be a ret pally, tank pally, healing paladin, and then you would swap out an elemental shaman with like another Destro Lock or a fire mage. That's pretty much it. Now, I will say, on the Horde side, you double enhancement tank might be meta. And the reason is, they can cast Alpha Rune on each other and get 20% attack power each. Oh, wait a second. He can give Alpha Rune to here. He can give Alpha Rune to the enhancement. He can give Alpha to the Destro. No, it still works. It doesn't work that way. They can't trade. Oh, you can't have Alpha. Okay. All right, what are we thinking about this group? Remove the Rogue and add a Feral DPS. Now we got Wind Fury from the Enhance. Now you'll need Ferals on the Alliance. So the Alliance, this will be a Feral here. All right, we'll make an alliance comp. I'm going to keep it the same here. We'll do a prop pally. We'll put the paladins in first. That's a holy priest. Holy pally. Ret, let's put a ret. We'll put a ret in group 2 and a feral. Yeah, you'll need a feral in each group. On the alliance side. You don't need 4 paladins in an alliance raid. 3 paladins will probably do it. And then you can go with marks. You don't really need the Marksman Hunter here, guys, because the tank lock will benefit more being in this group, but the tank lock could provide health to the other tanks. This is a level 50 raid comp. for Sunken Temple whenever they announce the raid. Everyone thinks it's going to be Sunken Temple, though. This is if you want to bring a Ret Paladin to your raid. Feral gives the crit, so you need Feral in the Horde side too. Well, we have Feral. We have a Feral off tank. I think Ferals do make the best off tank because of the crit. It gives more threat to the tanks. I mean, if you care about that, I don't know how bad threat will be with the Alpha Rune on the Horde now. Yeah, it's group wide, the Feral buff. I don't think you want a Ret Pally in your raid. I'm just putting it in there because Paladin buffs, you want 4 Paladins. Ideally, 4 Paladins gives you all the buffs. But I'm putting 3 for now. Paladin buffs are good. Salvation, Might. You don't need Kings anymore. So you only need 3 Paladins. Never mind. You used to need 4 Paladins. I don't think you need 4 anymore. You need Might and Salvation. And maybe Light. Might, Salvation, and Light. Group 2 Horde side is missing a crit Feral right here. Wait, are you saying Cat form will have crit? You're saying Cat form has crit? Oh, okay. So you want a Feral in every group and a Shaman in every group? You mean you want a Druid and a Shaman in every group? That's busted. That gives like no group spots ever. That's rough. This group will always look the same pretty much. For top DPS, they're forcing us to take, if you want to have all the buffs in every group, you have to take a Druid and a Shaman in every single group. Whereas Paladins, their buffs are raid wide because they can cast it on every person. Shamans, totems are just scuffed. Horde gets so scuffed, man. Horde raid comps are just awful because of totems. Guys, we need to raise some awareness. Let's finish making this group, and I want to show you guys why Horde is awful for raid comps. If you can't see it already. And if you don't think people are going to do this, think again. People will always do what's meta. Meta trickles down from the top. If you're playing retail, watching World First, any of that stuff, they're always going to take the raid-wide buffs. They're always going to take them into the comp because raid-wide buffs or party-wide buffs are OP. They provide more overall damage to the group. All right, we need a Destro lock. You could put a Shadow Priest in here. Give me a Resto Druid and an Arcane Mage. And then probably just another Destro lock on the Alliance group. I'm guessing because they do the highest single target damage. So you're forgetting about new runes that can easily add buffs that are raid wide and OP. They can. Hopefully they do. Hopefully they give something to Rogue because right now there's no reason to bring a Rogue. It's like, this Rogue spot is just pretty useless unless you're doing Blackwing Lair. You wouldn't do Blackwing Lair as a 20-man. So we're doing 20-mans right now. Okay. Right here, guys, this is the comp for Horde on top for 20-man. And this is the comp for Alliance. Obviously, the melee will always want a Feral Druid in the group for the crit damage. We're having so many buffs in this group that this comp can't even show all the buffs that they're bringing. And it doesn't really matter which 4 tanks that you bring. I put one of each tank. You could put a rogue tank in here too. I don't really think you need 4 tanks in a group like this. So for a 20-man, I would ideally bring... I would probably just do that and then probably make this like another Fury Warrior. And then... I don't think you ever really need 3 tanks. So you put the Marksman for the DPS, Fury, and then this spot is kind of wasted. You could put another lock in there for an imp buff, but honestly, at the end of the day, you probably just put more Fury Warriors, right? You know what I mean? Like, you probably just put more Fury Warriors. That's what most people always do, right? And so if we're not going with, if we're going Paladin Feral, then we just do a couple Fury Warriors right here. If we're being really nice, guys, if we're being really nice, we could put 2 rogues here to make the rogues feel better about themselves if rogues are going to be good. You want to cut a heals? Well, the thing is, Arcane can just do damage. Arcane doesn't need to heal if he doesn't have to. But we made a 5 healer group. The Restoration Druid can go Boomkin. You know what I mean? Like, the healers can just do damage as healing. But for a pug, I'm always taking 5 healers. So, we'll take a look. Let me get my pizza real quick. But overall, you guys, this is why I feel like Horde is a bit more scuffed when it comes to class balance, and it's because every group will pretty much start with a shaman. The totems that they provide to the group are really good, and it's very tough when the shaman's buffs are not raid wide like the paladins, because you don't need to take holy. You want 3 paladins. I put 3 different kinds in here because there are 3 kinds. I'm trying to make every spec viable here. But because the shamans are really strong and they're not their totems are not raid wide, it like limits you on the type of comp that you can really make. Can you open a new window and make one if we had raid-wide buffs? If we had raid-wide buffs, yeah, that's the problem, is you go more into taking into whatever classes like are doing the most damage. Now, then there's also the argument, Lurler, that it doesn't really matter what you take at that point, and it would just open it up to like take whatever you want because all you need is 1 shaman in the raid. You know what I mean? So people can interpret that however they want. But if you had a bunch of rogues who got left out and couldn't get in a raid, if this enhancement, if this Wind Fury totem worked over here, you know, if your group had if your guild had a bunch of rogues, they wouldn't be screwed over, because the feral crit buff would hit all of them. You wouldn't need 2 hunters because True Shot would hit the whole raid, and kings. Like, they're already giving hunters insane, and then not every hunter would have to go marksman. You could actually take a melee hunter. Not every hunter would have to go marksman for True Shot buff. You could actually have a melee hunter in your raid. You know what I mean? Like, because you just need 1. You just need 1 marksman hunter for True Shot. I think people would go BM. Well, then they would go BM. But you give yourself a lot more versatility in your raid to take whatever you want when you get rid of these party-wide buffs and make them raid-wide. Raid-wide is the solution to people taking specific comps for every party. Yeah, you can be BM melee, so that's fine. This could be, you could take a full group of melee. If the Fury Warrior buff or the Warrior buff was was raid wide instead of party wide. You know what I mean? So you just give yourself a lot more flexibility whenever we have the raid wide buffs, in my opinion. You could replace all the rogues with warriors. I think it would really be nice, guys, for rogues to get some kind of party wide buff or raid wide buff. They're the only class at this point that's been left out. Everyone is asking for tricks. Everyone that I know has asked for tricks. A Master Poisoner crit buff like Wrath would be good. Retail has a 3% flat damage buff if you have one rogue in the raid. Now you always have to take a raid. What is Tricks? Tricks is an ability where you cast it onto a tank as a rogue, and all of your damage, all of your threat from doing damage, will go directly to the tank. So as a rogue, you can be the first one to hit the boss. Pretty much. Because your damage immediately goes to the tank. Your threat, all of your threat that you do for like 6 to 20 seconds, depending on how long the buff lasts, will all go to the tank. Doesn't it give a damage buff too? In retail PvP, Tricks gives a damage buff. Not in PvE. Unless they've changed it recently. Phase 3 Warriors needs a way to generate rage early on. That would be insane for tanking. Oh, imagine a warrior tank if there's Tricks. You know what I mean? And like all of the rogues' damage and threat is like going to the warrior, and it would give him rage as well. That would just make rogues and warriors be meta again. Imagine a group with rogues with that rune. Imp exposed armor will always be up. Oh, for sure. Tricks will probably go to Shadow Priest. They probably go to Hunter, because Hunter only has True Shot Aura, you know, and Kings. Also, Shamans, you know, all they have are like a bunch of totems. And now they have the Alpha Room. Now they have Salvation, Reverse Salvation. It was like, yeah, you already had to take a Shaman in every group. So now it's like really, really cool, because now they also have another thing. Another reason that you want to take a Shaman to a raid. Tricks made rogues really needed in Wrath. I think that'd be a great idea to give rogues something, and Tricks is probably the hottest item on the menu for them. This is my class balance, I guess. I'll put it back really fast. And you guys can let me know what you think about this. Take a second and look through this to see if this is a decent comp. This has to be right now. This has to be Marksman, right, guys? This has to be Marksman for the True Shot Aura. Warriors are retired with the latest Shaman buff. Okay, these force. Well, no, Warriors provide shout, guys. Warriors provide shout. The only spots that are completely interchangeable are the combat rogues. These are the only two spots in the raid. Okay, I'm going to show you really quickly. The spots in the raid that are 100% replaceable are these spots right here. These are the only free spots in the raid. I'm going to show you guys. You don't need a Destro lock for really any reason. So you could technically take that out. However, Fire juices Destro lock. 2 locks for curses is probably more accurate, actually. You're right, you're right. You know what? Curse of Wreck and Curse of Elements, you actually need 2 locks. So the Shadow Priest, there is no spot for a Shadow Priest. Maybe you change this, guys. Maybe you do a Shadow Priest and the healing group on the Horde. I forgot about curses. Don't need elements, just force your enhanced shamans to use the 40 number. Yeah, Shadow Priest can replace a healer. Okay. Okay, that's good thinking, guys. This is actually a better group comp. You're already getting a double, you're getting a double Destro lock here. So Horde can, Alliance can technically afford to bring an extra hunter, an extra healer if they wanted. This needs to swap. Okay. I guess you could put rogues or warriors here. It wouldn't even matter. Or you could put another enhanced shaman. You could put a melee hunter. These slots don't matter. You don't have to bring rogues. This is why rogues are so down bad, guys. I'm going to essentially click the slots that are pretty much just like open. Okay. These are all pretty much required personnel in the raid. You don't have to bring Resto or Arcane for really any reason that I can think of. But Innervate and Tranquility is nice to have one in the healing group. So your healing group, this is a 20-man comp, and I've unclicked the non-required personnel. Ideally, you want one Shadow Priest because like they bring Vamp Embrace. You want one Druid pretty much. Isn't True Shot Aura only ranged attack power? What does that say right there? Increases the attack power of party members. Discipline Priest, Shadow Priest for Homunculi. Why do you have Feral? Feral provides a 3% crit to all melee. The Ferals have leader of the pack. If a class can get a party-wide buff, it's required. It's required. On Alliance, you have to have Ferals. Wind Fury. You can never get rid of Ferals in the Alliance groups. For Horde, you don't need them, but the 3% crit is nice. And Enhance could do Alpha and get 20% AP. Well, that's what this guy's doing. He's giving Alpha to this guy. And then he's going to give Alpha to the Feral. How long will Sard spin inside MC? 4 hours? 6? 20? My groups are one-shotting Molten Core, okay? I'm going to start recruiting for Molten Core now. Enhance and Prot, still the best tanks. I think Enhance and Prot Pally are really good tanks. It just makes sense that you have two melee groups. Now I could show one option for a magic damage tank group. What if it was a double Destro lock tank group? Because this has always been the meta. You know what I mean, guys? These are the only empty slots in a raid. I feel like these are all the mandatory slots that you need to fill a 20-man group. They're making Molten Core level 60. So that's all the MM Hunters this phase. Oh, wait. It's definitely only going to matter what DPS everyone is doing, and if a class is trash, going to use the spec the party raids group, and no one will run it anyway. Some screenshot of the skill description I read said shamans couldn't have alpha and beta at the same time. Really? Okay. Well, this guy can give him alpha. So the alpha change doesn't work for tanks. Now, these last two slots, you could put 2 more enhancement shamans, you could put 2 rogues, 2 more fury warriors, 2 melee hunters, whatever you want. But these are the only 2 slots in the Horde raid that are like up for debate. Now, I will show you this comp just really quickly. There is a special comp Okay. Let's just use this one for Warlock tank. You put a Fire Mage. Well, there's already a Fire Mage in the raid, so you don't need another one. But you could do one Balance Druid here to juice the crit of the 2 tanks. Put another Enhancement Shaman for a double. Well, we already have double Alpha buff. But you could do double enhancement. These 2 to Alpha the demon locks. You put another Ellie for totems. And maybe you do another Fire Mage if you want. It doesn't really matter. You could do anything here. And then you don't need double Destro now if you have double Warlock, because they can do the curses. This is another comp that you can run now. Is you can completely just you don't even need melee damage anymore. You could just run a full caster comp right here. You could do a 1 melee group now if you run this. 1 demo per group for the spell power buff. Yeah, he could be over here. You could run a Destro and a demo in each group. What spell power buff do they get? What spell power buff does Demonology get? Demonic Pact on legs. And that's party wide or raid wide, you know? Party wide, okay. Alright, well, it doesn't really matter what the last spot is. If you need more AoE damage, you could bring a fire. If you need Destro, you could do that. So your 2 tanks in the raid could both be Warlocks, and then you could run double caster groups. So this is another option. Instead of running a traditional 10 melee comp, or 8 melee with 2 marksman hunters, you could now run just 5 melees and 10 casters with 2 demonology tanks. So that's another option now. But I do think that the previous option is the better option with the marksmans. Instead of going like that. So you're saying 1 demonology warlock could be Biss because they provide a damage to the party. Fury, Feral. The problem stands it is tough. Like when you're trying to min max your raid with all the party buffs, it just kind of gets tough. In general, you know, like if we need raid wide buffs so that there's less discrimination. Party wide buffs is causing a lot of class discrimination, which we want to stop. We want to just kind of stop that in the game, you know? We'll put the Shadow here and then maybe another Fire Mage on the Alliance. Doesn't matter too much. But this is kind of how the comps are going to look. With maybe a prot feral tanker would be Biss. You could do prot warrior tank and then bring a feral DPS. Like those are interchangeable. The tanks in general are pretty much interchangeable. You could even do a rogue tank, feral DPS. You could do a ret pally with another one. Did someone say Druid top healer in SOD? Druids probably should be top healers with all the throughput for raids. Now that they can stack hots and everything. I imagine the Druid throughput would be pretty amazing. If everything is raid wide, you can have 5 people providing all the buffs and stack the meta. If you're confined to a group wide, you're forced to bring different things. So it's a double-edged sword, to be honest. I think it could go either way. Nikki, you're going to have the 1% abusing everything. But right now, in order to provide more flexible group comps, I feel like you're going to want raid-wide buffs. You know what I mean? You looking forward to testing reduced armor on the bosses tomorrow? There's some shaman that are doing 300 more DPS now. With the 20% attack power buff and the armor reduction. Enhance are doing ridiculous damage. Can't forget about PIs. Everybody knows the PI goes to the Destro lock. This raid is pretty much just set up for the Destro lock to pump right here. Like everything juices the Destro lock. He's the only one that doesn't really bring anything but straight damage. Everybody else buffs him. You know what I mean? Fire and combustion is nice for PI. Yeah, it's nice. I still think Destro is probably the best usage of just raw spell power. PI goes to the staff of Jordan Marksman Hunter. All right. That's what's going on. We could do one of these guys. We could do one more comp. If all the buffs were raid wide. If buffs are raid wide, you guys, this is how many more free slots that you have in the raid. Let's just do all the raid wide buffs. These guys don't provide any raid wide buffs, right? Yeah, okay. These are all the classes that are required in a raid-wide comp, right? These are all the classes that bring a raid-wide buff. I mean, you would do one more for Curse. Double Curse. Is there any classes that I'm missing that provide a raid-wide buff that aren't in the group? Vamp Embrace, maybe? Vamp Embrace could be a raid-wide buff. What does Elemental bring? Elemental brings nothing. Sorry. Resto has all the totems. Yeah, you wouldn't need an Elemental Sham. Vamp Embrace is raid wide. Well, that's why he's in here. Because we want all the classes that provide either party or raid wide buffs. And we're imagining that all the current party buffs are now raid wide. So we go from having 2 open slots to 3 open slots in the raid to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 slots in the raid. Yeah, and if you just delete this down to 10-man, this is basically a Nomer comp right here. This is very close to what you want for a Nomer comp right now. Which is why a lot of melee are getting left out. And there's no rogues. Not a single rogue in the raid. No Frost or Arcane Mage. Maybe warriors will be getting rally or something like that. You bring 9 enhancement shamans in the current meta. Not wrong. Is Rogue the only class that's left out? I think Rogue is the only class, right? That's just not in the raid at all. What about Rogue kicks? Shaman's Taunt is a kick, bro. Every class can kick. Mage, Fury Warrior can kick. The legit restoration shaman can kick. If they did something like a rolling expose, if expose armor is stacked on top of Sunder, you would need a rogue. If rogues had tricks, you would need a rogue. If rogues had a 3% raid-wide damage buff like they do in retail, you would need a rogue. The only time you actually need a rogue is maybe for traps in Blackwing Lair. I love how they announced 20-man MC, also known as MC. Isn't improved exposed better? Yeah, but it used to improved exposed used to suck because then warriors couldn't Sunder to hold threat. So it's like you wouldn't expose armor until like warriors had a massive threat lead. Or you had a different class tanking. So the comps in general just look so much better with the raid-wide buffs. Like all these slots are just free, man. Free for people to fill the groups with whatever. It just gives you a lot more flexibility. Improved expose is not better than Homunculi? I don't know. I don't think it is. I think Devastate works with Imp exposed now, though. Right now it is. Okay. Yeah, I don't know much about the Homunculi versus improved exposed armor. All right, well that's I guess how the comps are going to be looking.